media plays a significant role in spreading information and raising awareness on sanitation issues. They help trigger a positive change in public opinion and behavior on a matter of concern. The media can indirectly influence decision makers, especially in the development sector. Media assumes an ever greater role in spreading knowledge about sanitation issues in the world in general and India in particular. The news media plays a key role not only to raise awareness and support for the water and sanitation sector, but also in giving a stronger voice to everyday citizens and in monitoring commitment made by the political leaders. When journalists understand the real challenges behind delivering water and sanitation services to the poor, they help facilitate public dialogue and citizen engagement that focuses on relevant solutions. To discuss more on this topic, we have some experts from the communications sector. I would like to invite our first panelist, Ms. Sonali Khan, Managing Director, Sesame Workshop India. Ms. Khan leads Sesame Workshop's education mission in India to create innovative and engaging content that maximizes the education power of the media to help kids show smarter, stronger, and kinder. Sonali is a global advocate for human rights and for ending violence against marginalized communities with an emphasis on girls and women. Sonali is a proud recipient of the prestigious Nari Shakti Puraskar from the President of India. In 2016, she also received the Skoll Award for Social Entrepreneurship for her work in ending child marriage. Welcome, ma'am. Our second panelist is Mr. Santosh Tiwari, a director at APCO Worldwide, a leading global public affairs and strategic communication consultancy. With over 25 years of experience in public policy analysis, media, thought leadership, government and industry relations, and media management, he advises clients on policy, advocacy, and communication strategies, leveraging his deep insights, extensive network, and strong reputation in the field. Welcome, sir. We have next Mr. Sahil Talwar, Associate Director at Jagran Pahal, the social vertical to Dainik Jagran, one of the largest read daily newspapers in the world. Mr. Talwar brings over a decade of dedicated experience in designing, developing, and implementing purpose-led initiatives. His expertise lies in crafting strategic solutions that not only address immediate challenges but also contribute to the broader goals of promoting health and well-being. Welcome, Mr. Talwar. Our final panelist is Mr. Rajiv Tikku, Consulting Editor, Sustainability Outlook Group. Mr. Tikku is a development journalist and editor with experience of working with media houses, UN agencies, government organizations, corporates, and development sector. He is presently working as a consulting editor, Sustainability Outlook Group. Last but not the least, we are glad to have with us the Chief of Bureau, CNBC TV18, who heads the channel's team of journalists covering economic policy. He is the anchor of CNBC TV18 News Center, a daily show covering the big news stories impacting consumers, the economy, and the political scene. He is also the host and editor of Global Eye, the channel's award-winning show on foreign affairs. He closely follows and reports on political and government decision-making impacting the economy, stock markets, electric mobility, and international trade. Please welcome Mr. Parikshit Luthra. Thank you so much. Parikshit, the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Eden, and thank you very much, everyone in the audience, for joining us. I'm sure it's been a day of intense and interesting conversations, but I guess this is the last panel of the day, and when it comes to sanitation, when it comes to climate action, when it comes to sustainability, development, communication, and how we build a communication strategy around these campaigns, how corporates and governments, how corporates and NGOs and civil society work together is extremely important to implement those messages, implement those policies, and make sure they reach the last mile. So without much ado, let's open this up, and possibly in case anybody has questions in the audience, we'll be happy to take that as well. Sonali Khan, let me begin by speaking to you about the need for an effective development communication strategy right now. Your organization has been doing great work when it comes to children, their education, when it comes to gender equality. Give us a sense of what is the missing link when it comes to our sustainability goals right now, when it comes to our awareness campaigns around sanitation.
Thank you so much, and posing this really critical question right to me at the beginning, but I'll try my best to sort of come up with a couple of insights. So I think when it comes to a development strategy, the couple of things that we need to recognize when building this is, at the end of the day, we need to take all people along, because it is ultimately communication to bring about behavior change, to bring about the kind of goals that we want to achieve. So this is an important aspect. How do we message? Now, when you mention SDG goals, how do we translate this into simple language, but at the same time make it possible for people to participate and act? So many of our messages often expects too much from our of the people who are receiving the messages. So as development folks that are working in development communication, I think one of the principles that I would really put out there is walk in the shoes of the people with whom we are communicating. We need to start with where they are. That would be the first thing. Second is, how do we make this communication inclusive? When I say inclusive, is really understand their needs and make the messages so that we can work with them. Now, you and me and this panel here is an enlightened panel. We have also traveled a long distance when we talk about gender equity, we talk about the aspects of communication, education, etc. But people also need to travel that journey. The last thing I would say, and especially when we work in the field of children, how do we make that communication fun, exciting, and engaging? I worked with women. We used to say, how do you make the communication equally exciting? People are not, if there is a boring, didactic, talking down at them kind of a communication, they will not, receive it well. So the last point, and especially when we talk about sanitation, how do we make this message so that it takes people's realities with them? So as development communication experts, it's quite a complex arena that we are really dealing with. But our job is to really make it simple and possible to act. That's the two things I would say.
Right. Very interesting opening remarks there, Sonali. But let me get in Rajiv at this point. Rajiv, when it comes to the media, the news media is guided by the big story of the day, the big breaking story, which hits the consumer the most. When it comes to stories around climate, when it comes to sanitation, when it comes to clean drinking water, how are such stories taken by media houses, by consumers in general? Is it difficult to take this message across to the viewer or the reader, the kind of messages that Sonali was pointing out?
Yeah, thank you, Parikshit. I think that's a very interesting question. What exactly happens is that first we need to probably step back a bit and see how media works. In media, there's nothing like a sanitation beat. So, there's like ministries to people who are not familiar with media. Unless there's a ministry, nobody is really taking ownership of the issue. And secondly, in India, the other thing is happening is that the sanitation, particularly comes to sanitation. Sanitation, as of now, comes under at least 3 central ministries. You have water ministry there, you have housing ministry there, and you also have social justice ministry. And on top of it, sanitation is essentially a state subject. So these are the structural challenges in taking ownership of the issue, the first thing. Secondly, it's not seen as a sexy beat really. I mean, you're competing with cricket, you're competing with cinema, and you're competing with climate change actually. Now, an anecdotal piece here is that there's a very strong linkage between climate action, climate change, and sanitation. But most people in the media don't see it because they don't get time to get into those kind of details. And it's essentially a sanitation story is seen as a toilet story, and it's not interesting, exciting, it doesn't stand a chance at all. And that is where probably other stakeholders come into the picture. Because also in the interest of probably chambers like FICCI also, because they have the Sanitation Council, it's also in the interest of NGOs who have a mandate to work on those issues. It's also in the interest of public relations agencies because they're client driven. So that is where their role comes into making it palatable to media in the first place. So if they're able to unpack issues, show linkages, and inform media better, that is where then the stories have a better chance of making some presence in the media in a competitive world. So I'll stop here.
Right.
rather than-
Sahil, just to take off from where Rajiv left, when it comes to the kind of goals that we want to achieve, when the corporates or corporate houses set up a CSR policy to do something on sanitation, the government of India since 2014 has had a Swachh Bharat campaign, for example. But when it comes to CSR activities, having clear goals around that and what you seek to achieve, whether those aims are really changing the lives of anyone across the country. Do you see that happening in corporate campaigns, or do you somewhere feel that you have these big events sometimes, big announcements, but there isn't much follow up as to what's happening on the policy front eventually?
See, thanks for that question. It is my observation from, ever since working for the Swachh Bharat mission, attaining the Swachh Bharat mission goals, that we as a media house, are also part of the overall Dainik Jagran group and working as a social vertical of the group. So it is not just the responsibility, of the media house to implement the programs, but also talk about them. So I feel the programs that are connected to the last mile are, having the approach where the stories right from the ground are, centered around the people and are picked up from there, and those people are actually, connected overall to the larger initiative, have been entirely successful. I feel that there are all sorts of programs which are in existence. There are certain programs where it is just a one-off activation kind of strategy which is taken forward, where that is also equally important. I feel that there are certain movies like a Toilet Ek Prem Katha, or there's actually different recipients and different consumers for different sort of information.
So let me ask you, Sahil, what has been the most effective social campaign or sanitation campaign that Jagran Pehel had, which really resonated with the reader or the viewer for that matter? And yeah, please tell us about that.
Actually, if we talk about a one-off, a campaign that has really made a difference right at the peak of the Swachh Bharat mission, we were actually able to align with one of our partners, Reckitt, and during the thought leadership discussion, it was discussed that maybe we should come up with an idea which actually engages the community and also takes the message of maintaining the toilets at the larger audience. So what we really did was that we, in partnership with Reckitt, gave away the free space for the matrimonial ads, where the toilet is a must was given, financed by Reckitt and by us. I can tell you that that campaign won one of the biggest campaign awards globally, and was also highly appreciated, recognized within the community. So I think it is not just one singular approach that works for one individual. Maybe there is sometimes certain approach which hits a certain consumer in one way, and maybe in the other for somebody else you need to actually have some other sort of an idea which works for them.
Right. A very important view would come in from Santosh as well, somebody who looks at the PR world very, very closely. Santosh, just to understand from you, how difficult is it for you to get a message across when it comes to an initiative or campaign on sanitation, on climate action that a corporate house is undertaking or a particular government is undertaking? Very often in the media, we hear about paid and sponsored campaigns. Do you think eventually, in a large number of cases, you have to go for those sponsored campaigns to get those messages out? There is no ready acceptance for those stories, for those social causes, or those campaigns that a corporate house or a particular civil society group is trying to push?
Yes, Parikshit, this is a huge challenge which corporate world is facing, especially in the world of ESG, when SEBI is putting in a lot of effort, to bring in ESG and all those reporting norms into picture. But this challenge came before me in 2017, in fact 2018. And this challenge came to me for the first time through ISC only, Sanitation Coalition. I was handling media projecting FICCI at that time. And the whole of ISC team, we had a meeting, and this was an interesting meeting for all those who would understand how far and how much distance ISC has traveled since 2017 to 2023, you would get to know. So in that room, everybody was convinced that this event will not get covered. So what should we do so that the event gets covered? This kind of question a journalist for 25 years had never faced. If I do a good story, it will get covered. Why shouldn't it be covered? But then I talked to my team members here and then started thinking why ISC event, which has ministers, which has one great issue, which reverberates with the Prime Minister, which reverberates with the government, will not get covered by media. But I knew the answer, why media will not cover it. Then had to find a solution because I had a job at hand. And that's why 4 important things need to be considered when you are doing stories which are not of high news value. The first one is, what is your headline? Whether you are a PR agency doing PR for a social issue and selling that, or basically projecting that, or you are a media head, or you are a communication person projecting that story before media, first of all, you have to be absolutely clear about the headline. I'm not saying this whole event needs to have a headline, but at least should have a theme.
A peg.
A peg. And then second point is, and which sometimes, when you have a headline, you miss out. I have edited op-ed pages of Financial Express for 5 years, so the critical challenge used to be always, headline you would get. What is the flagline, the supporting theme of headline, and the 5 key takeaways which you would like to bring out in that whole op-ed or anything. Similarly, in any event or any projection, any social sector story selling or everything, there has to be 5 key takeaways. Depending on who is the stakeholder, once you have identified the stakeholder, a stakeholder would pick up your story from those 5 key takeaways and headline. But the most important thing which was to be decided in 2018 to project ISC was which is the best platform through which you should project that. And Parikshit, I'll tell you that at that time we didn't pick CNBC.
Yes,
I was coming to that. And there was a strong reason for that. Because Times Now at that time, we saw that is a channel which was a general channel. It was not a business channel. And if we in the morning itself started beaming those pointers, which we do. I have left television in 2009, so some of those terms, it's slipping my mind. But what do you call that? Those, morning flashes which come, flashes. So we ensured that in the morning of the event, the flashes on ISC event were running continuously on Times Now. So those flashes were, this minister is coming, this is the story which you can pick up, so all those events. And then these cameras, lined up here at 9:30 p.m. and the Secretary General after the first session came to my room and asked me, मैं सारे events के लिए ऐसा नहीं कर सकता हूँ कुछ.
So you need to have a very effective communication strategy to get the message across.
Absolutely.
Have a clear headline, have clear takeaways in mind, and make sure that you're targeting the right audience through the right channel, which has the largest space. Choose the right time slots, the readership, etc. Interesting. But let me go back to Sonali once again. When it comes to having clear goals and working with corporate houses, how can the media, a company for that matter, and NGOs like yours come together and have a lasting strategy to pursue a particular goal?
So this is a critical question, because I think one has heard this often enough, the whole Samaj, Sarkar and Bazaar logic, that at the end of the day, the marketplace, the society, which is where the NGOs fall, and the community, that's ultimately who we are targeting and where we want to see the transformation, is that critical, the 3 corners of the mix that we want to bring together to work. So where I think where you're pointing to is, how do we make this happen, right? How do we make a corporate now? So as working in an NGO for a long time, we've worked with media. I think one of the biggest game changers has been digital media, right? We believed that at the beginning it was going to be a level playing field, but soon enough we realized
that when advertising and many other powers that be start playing, then that also becomes it's not that level as we sort of imagined, the search engine optimization and all the good stuff that goes with social media, the Facebooks, the Twitters, now of course X of the world. While we saw that at a game changer, there's also a lot that goes on behind, and a lot of investment is required to actually get your message to the surface or really get eyeballs, even in digital media. So I think where we are seeing as nonprofits that there were avenues open to us to get our message to the audience, that the sophistication of that was constantly being pushed up. So I think here I see a great opportunity. Yeah, the nonprofits are virtually the ears on the ground. We understand what is going on, like what even Sahil here is speaking, or other members on the panel, that what's going on, what's the reality, what's the social reality. I mean, how can we make that newsworthy? How can we bring that up there? Then you have the corporate. Now, I won't take an example, for a very recent example again, I mean, not to repeat Reckitt again, but we just launched a very large toilet hygiene program, and which sort of reflects with the theme of the day, and toilet hygiene for children, because Sesame Workshop India works with children below the age of 8. So yes, we were launching a toilet hygiene program, teaching kids how to keep the toilet clean, flush before they leave, so that the next person will find a clean toilet, but also then germs will not, it will be germ free. And what about cleaning it? So when we launched this campaign, how do we make this, like what I think Santosh was also saying, newsworthy? So I think we had the President of India launch the books. And it was an amazing launch because she spoke to little children on the value of hygiene, on the value of keeping toilets clean, and heard back from the kids. Then we ran a whole exercise with bringing in influencers, having dads, school moms speak about, teaching their children toilet hygiene. So pulling every card that it's in the book. So I think the partnership with an organization like Sesame that understands children so well, what changes and builds behaviors for children. Then we have a partner like Reckitt, who sort of gets the media angle, who understands sophistication, and then we get a PR agency in. And how do we build a campaign together? And it wasn't APCO, it was Avian. So that was again like we are all using, and there are like many players in the field.
Right.
But how do you bring it together? Because while there is a lot of user-generated content today, while there is lots of platforms for disseminating messages and information, it is getting sophisticated. And I think I want to just put it there that how this partnership that you mentioned can really work together to take the messages critically to the people that will find it useful and definitely will be transformative then.
Great. 2-3 things that immediately come to my mind, and I'll begin with Sahil and then go across to Santosh and Rajiv. One, when we see corporate houses, every corporate houses has a head of communications, a communications department, one which deals with internal communications, employee communications, and one which deals with external communications, reaching out to media, forming a media strategy or a PR strategy for a particular event, or crisis communication in case there is some negative publicity the company is going through. Do you think, Sahil, it will help if companies start having a development communications officer, somebody whose job is to communicate the sustainability strategy of the company, take the message across? Do you think that will help ensure that a company is able to deliver on its CSR goals, have a clear point person within the company who is dealing with the media, who is engaging with the government, and that will build a more effective sustainability or sanitation or strategy or campaign around health and hygiene?
Yeah, I feel that the time is such nowadays that any business needs to have a particular purpose, and at the same time, it's very important that that purpose is put out to the people, to the community. So most definitely, be it a dedicated resource who's concerned of handling such a department, or multiple people working as part of the unit, I think is most definitely needed. And with Jagran working with certain purpose-led brands over the past few years, I think it has really, made a difference in terms of defining what the companies are all about. When we talk about CSR, when we talk about social activities, when we talk about, doing better for the community, I think, when we are taking that and aligning it with the mission and goals of the company, of the corporate itself, I think it really makes a huge difference in terms of, getting a sense to the people who are the users, who are the consumers of that product or service, to understand the brand better.
Right. Rajiv, do you feel that when it comes to media houses, especially the degrees that we have for media at the bachelor level, at the postgraduate level, perhaps we need to start thinking of having specializations around environmental journalism, health related journalism, because when we speak about having sexy beats, when you walk into a newsroom, sought after beats are related to politics, related to government, they're related to national security, cricket or sports for that matter. So if we want to make this more mainstream, and we've got some excellent health journalists in the country, some excellent environmental journalists in the country, but if we really wanted to become a sort of a movement, something that many budding journalists want to take to, do you think that having a dedicated stream or specialization at the end of your journalism program can help in that direction?
Before I come to answer that, I'd like to add what Sahil was saying earlier. As far as having a dedicated resource for, say, development communication corporate houses, probably it may not be possible, because if they have to choose, they have an ESG office, communication officer needed much more probably for business reasons. And for decades we have been doing so much of CSR work, and we still don't have a CSR communication officer in any of the companies. Just to quote one of the largest business houses in the country, which is the oldest and largest, they have done tons of CSR work, and if you look at their work, it's just sitting like a Sarkari website on one of their web pages, nothing more. So here is a progressive group which is not even able to do it for whatever reason. So probably that may not be possible. But having an agency like for any agency for the matter, which has dedicated resource for various things, I think that's more a viable kind of a thing. The second thing, what you asked about the media houses. Now the challenge here is, firstly, there are some courses which do have development aspect to their subject, or one odd subject here or there. But the challenge here is, where is the absorption in the media? Long back we used to have theme pages on health, environment and stuff like that on newspapers. Now those theme pages have disappeared completely. There used to be a development editor in all newspapers. We don't have development editors anymore now. So that absorption isn't there. So they have to compete in the mainstream. So just to give an example, I used to handle a CSR page in Financial Express for many years and long back. And then one of the illustrious editors who was here also earlier, when he joined, he said, write an extent page and all that, but I would like to reduce the space. So I didn't like the idea. He said, but don't worry, I'll get into the edit page. So you have more premium space, lesser space, but you have better visibility. So you don't get those kind of editors also now. So this has to be top driven essentially. If the editor is interested, then there's no end to it. There is space. If the editor is not interested, so...
How do you change the mindset then?
No, it's all market driven at the end of the day. Now, if Racket is there, if there are more companies there, I was talking about that NGOs are donor driven and PR agents are client driven, and media houses are also advisor driven, unfortunately. So it comes, it's like a vicious cycle. How do you break it? So you need to have somebody at the top will take an interest and create an ecosystem around that. That's quite doable. It does happen. We've seen NDTV do it, we've seen Outlook do it, and we've seen Jagran do it, and there are some more regional new publications which are doing it. So if it is top driven, the space is there. But if you wait for the structural changes to happen and all that, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen anyway.
Right. Santosh, as Rajiv was pointing out, market forces are at play. Unfortunately, even when we're talking about some very, very pressing issues such as sanitation, but how do you create the right audience? We need to have sustained awareness about all these issues that we are talking about, making sure that this reaches the last mile, not just in your top cities, but also in tier 2, tier 3 villages and the smallest districts in the country. How do you do that? How do you build the right market forces to keep this message going year after year, and also make sure that it creates the awareness it deserves?
Parikshit, it's a very critical question, and it has to be looked at from the angle of what corporates do. So there is a very interesting course, and if anybody is interested, there is a Harvard Business School course is on sustainable business strategy, and Professor Rebecca Henderson teaches that. In that course, her basic theme is that any business will run and will have growth if it is good for society. So if a business project or a product or any business proposition is good for society, it is good for business. And you will have profitability in that. How do you do that? So then after 6 months of that course, I asked her that, do you think, she sits on boards of various multinational companies, I asked her, do you think that any corporate does sustainability or any social sector work or anything related to social sector on its own, even in today's world? Her answer was not in affirmative. But she again reiterated the fact that anything which is good, and this is not a general statement, there are corporates, throughout the world which are doing great, astounding work in ESG and social sector. But the challenge is that to convince even corporate leaders that look, this whole fundamental of doing something which is good for society will also be ultimately good for business. It's happening in climate action, it's happening in social sector. I am not taking names of companies, but there are companies which are bringing in products which are good for society, and they are doing huge business. And there are several companies which are following that route. But the sad part is that as far as imbibing this strategy is concerned on a large scale, globally I am saying, not only in India, it has not happened the way it should happen. Because corporate leaders are still not convinced stakeholder growth, stakeholder money growth, shareholder growth, etc. Those things still play their role and their part.
Right.
But the good part is that agencies like ISC, across the world, UN agencies and other agencies, they have started doing stuff time and again, and this whole thinking is changing. So if the first part happens, that the corporate strategies are built across this whole idea of good for society, good for business, and ultimately it will bring in profitability. It will bring in two things. There is a small company somewhere, I am forgetting the country. This company is a bakery company. And it's completely driven by society. So they bring in people to decide on the menu, and they teach them how to prepare those bakery stuff and all. And this is a company owned by 200 people. So everybody is some sort of a CEO. So it's held by society, it's working for the society, and society is completely imbibed, and the growth is phenomenal. This is a Harvard case study. This thought process has to come. If this has come, then society will start, picking up, taking things. And thanks to Nainaji and ISC team, I still am a jury member of the award which is given to the communication projects. Parikshit, you will be astonished the kind of projects which come before us to judge. You can immediately pick up those projects, and anybody can latch on to that. They are doing great social work. And we have been lucky at ISC that we are getting those kind of nominations. Natasha ji is doing great work, and everybody in the whole team is doing great work.
Right.
But it's not that things are not working, things are not happening. It's just that, it has to be a society-driven thing.
Right.
Media will also pick up. And being a journalist, you must be thinking that, ye Santosh kya bol raha hai? Ki society kaise karega? But when you get the pressure from society,
right,
you think that people are using...
that will build the market forces. Sonali, coming to the role of the government, in 2012, the government had launched a sanitation and hygiene advocacy and communication strategy. How effective has the government's own strategy been? Yes, we've seen a very strong campaign around Swachh Bharat. This has been on a mission mode, and now we have a mission around the life or lifestyle for environment campaign as well. But when it comes to taking the government communication strategy around health, hygiene, sanitation to the last person in the smallest, remotest part of the country, how have we fared so far?
Uh, I think you should have the government answer that, but I'll try my best from a communication development perspective. So I think a couple of things that most corporates, I think non-profits and several of us latched on when this whole strategy started was the hardware bit. So let's build the toilets, right? It was all about construction of toilets. It's easy to invest. You can see where your money goes, the brick, the mortar model. Which we call in the non-profit world the brick and mortar model, where you're either investing in school bags, you're investing in midday meals, so that where corporates feel comfortable giving their money. So I think overall that is where the strategy started off, and we thought that if we give people toilets because they don't have that, they'll stop open defecation, and a lot of things will start changing. You put dustbins, you talk about, agila kachra, sukha kachra, you talk about, creating infrastructure. But then we come to the hard truth that behaviors are not changing. So the toilet is there, they're using it as a godam, they're going still in the open. Then you have to come up with community-led strategies. Where, when I started, I said when I spoke about the word inclusive, is how do you bring community participation in? How do you ensure that they are taken along on this journey? And behavior change is a very critical part of whatever communication strategy we create. If you are giving vaccines, we know this about the polio vaccine. There are examples after examples where we've tried to go down the route of providing a solution that is a product-based solution, and it has never worked. We've had to come back to what people are thinking about it. How are they responding to it? In our case, we always say, and you spoke about climate change so many times that I'm sort of, I would love to respond to that. Where are the voices of children in climate change? Are we taking the most impacted, most affected constituency along? The children are critical stakeholders of the climate action strategy. So when you go back to hygiene, again, children were left out. So, I mean, it's okay that I represent Sesame, so I am going to voice this point, but they are the future. They are going to inherit the planet. So if we are going to build up sustainable habits, if we are going to, make sure that in the next couple of years we are not breathing this polluted air of Delhi again and again and again, I think we need the most critical stakeholder in the room, that's the kids. So
you mentioned the kids, but another thing that I'd just like to add to it, what about women? When it comes to all these campaigns, all these PR campaigns that we are building around sanitation, climate action, how many women are actually in the room to take those decisions? Do you think decision making will be more effective if we have more women in the room taking those
absolutely.
decisions?
If you had more women on the panel as well, Parikshit.
Okay, that was not decided by me.
I couldn't help it. But anyway, we can start here. But no insult to fellow panelists. They're all brilliant and amazing folks, but I couldn't help that jibe. Yes, absolutely. We must get more women, and I think we are starting with looking at the parliament, seeing changes by 2030. I think I was telling that we will only see that change if we have little girls raise their hands in classrooms. We have to start from go. I mean, we have to empower women and girls, and if we empower women, we empower girls. So totally with you. When we are talking about hygiene, coming back, I think some of the earliest problems we were facing is that women using the toilet. Who is going to keep the toilet clean? What about menstrual hygiene? There are so many aspects of hygiene that impact women's lives apart from availability of water. So as soon as you get women in this mix, the kinds of issues that you will have to tackle, apart from just building toilets and, about it, and also when you're looking at the entire sewage disposal, every aspect of hygiene, whichever aspect, I think we will have more brilliant solutions. I can put my money on that.
Right. I think we just have enough time for closing remarks from all our panelists to leave us with one key takeaway that they want us to think about. Rajiv, let me begin with you. Any final thoughts to leave the audience with when it comes to having an effective development communication strategy?
Yeah, there are two things that come to my mind. One thing is that probably an organization like ISC could conduct media workshops, awareness workshops, not really resource intensive workshops, which could open up the eyes of the media people to that sanitation is not only about toilets, it's about health, livelihoods, education, gender empowerment, children's health, climate action, name anything that can be related backwards to sanitation. And sanitation is SDG goal 6. Unless India makes progress on SDG 6, the world is not going to make progress. And that's very critical. And then it has a ripple effect on all SDGs. So the sanitation story is really a very big story. There's a business case also, big business case here, and which has been established by World Banks and others also. And so that's one part of it. So it could go a long way in sensitizing the media itself. The second thing is media, without waiting for sanitation correspondents, they could also look at stories in an interesting manner. Now, a toilet story is also about women not agreeing to marry into villages where people don't have toilets. It's also about what Sahil was talking about, matrimonial aids. So there's lots of anecdotal evidence out there which establish sanitation as a subject worthy of attention. So these stories need to be told, and they're sitting with people like Sonali probably who are working on the ground level with ISC, which has access to lots of database, and those stories are already out there, but they need to be shared more openly and on a larger scale.
Right.
So that will also help media to probably pick up those stories, and they need not be seen as sanitation story. A good story is a good story at the end of the day. If any media man sees a good story, he'll find a way of doing it. No, but that it has to be told. That unfortunately, media is not in a position to investigate, deploy resources, and then they are also used to getting stories on the table, unfortunately, from others.
And I think,
it competes there.
At the end of the day, I think I'll also have to admit, as a media person, we need to think more. We think of how to make a strong, punchy headline out of a political story or a national security story. There is clearly no reason why you can't make a very interesting consumer story for something to do with sanitation, water, toilets, etc. Because this does reach out to the last mile. You just have to think out of the box and make it strong enough and compelling enough for the viewer or the reader. Santosh, any final thoughts that you'd like to leave us with?
While we keep our efforts going to engage media, we must look at it differently, because social media and digital media, these are two mediums which have become much bigger than media. Maybe I will not be reading newspapers or TV channels, I think once or not more than once or twice. But social media penetration and digital media penetration has gone so deep that if you established a society connect in a story, and you have social media and digital media connect, it will travel too far and media will be compelled to do their story, because I have come on the other side of the table, I have to look at the strategy differently. So rather than running after media, I would basically look at angles which will be acceptable to the larger society, and once it is acceptable to the larger society and it is pushed through social media and digital media, media will come back and cover those stories.
Interesting. Sahil.
Yeah, so I would like to say that, most definitely, like you had mentioned, that corporates do need to have, development, concern specific department. But I feel that, more than ever, the media houses by themselves, need to have their social verticals in place and their dedicated team in place. I feel that, right from mass media to mid media to interpersonal communication, we need to have all these, communication channels very much open for us in order to be able to capture, the stories right from the ground and be able to raise the right awareness. Definitely responsible, communication and reporting it's our bread and butter, most definitely. But at the same time, being able to, capture the stories right at the grassroots level is our, very much our responsibility.
Right. Sonali.
Thanks. Like all women, we have the last word. So I couldn't help this one either. But just saying, I think as the last couple of thoughts that were coming to my mind was that actually we are not living in the world of one headline anymore. We are living in the world of multiple headlines. We live in the world of what is called hyperlocal. No news is generated at the site of consumption. So as development activists, I think we really need to look at development communication in many, many significant ways. And where I just want to draw your attention, I still remember when I started working at Sesame, we were looking at children influencers, and there was a little kid, I think in the US, who used to just unbox toys, and for any of his unboxing, he used to have million followers and million likes. So that's the world we are talking about. And I think as we sit at FICCI today, that's what's challenging us, the world of ChatGPT, AI. I think that's what we want to talk of and challenge ourselves with. And I think that's the only way we'll be effective. Because I still remember when we say who's on Facebook, you'll find the most, any town you go, folks are on Facebook. You go into rural Rajasthan, a child uses voice prompts and finds his favorite YouTube video. So we are living in a very different world. So I think we need to take cognizance of that and therefore build our strategies.
Yeah, because we are moving more and more towards digital. Therefore, strategies also need to be tailored accordingly. Thank you very much, Sonali, Rajiv, Santosh, and Sahil for joining us. It's been an interesting discussion. Thank you very much in the audience for joining us.
Thank you so much for the insightful session. Any questions from the audience, with your permission?
Any questions?
Any questions from the audience? No? Okay. May I now invite Ms. Natasha Patel, CEO, India Sanitation Coalition, for the vote of thanks.
So good evening again. And before I say thank you for staying with us till the end, I won't call it the bitter end, because I think this last session was something which I love. I'm all about how to promote. That's my background before I joined the ISC, and I do think that the one big lacuna in our sector is how do we promote development. We get so involved in doing the work that we forget that the message is equally important. So again, thank you very much, panelists, for giving us some insight into how we need to promote the work that we do. It's never always sexy work. There are emotional stories that we have. There are times when we are out in the field and we feel what a great story this would make. But when we come back to reality, unfortunately, our reality in the cities does not allow us to tell those stories. So again, those are some of the challenges that we face. But again, there are some avenues of hope that have been opened up in today's session. So thank you again. I'm very grateful to you for giving us these thoughts. To all of you here, we've had 2 very, very eventful days. I've been doing this for now. This is my 5th year, and I can't believe that. It's been 5 years since I joined. But every year I keep telling myself, honestly, we've done a great job. We brought so many new ideas to the forefront, and that's the role of ISC as a coalition, to be able to bring together different partners, to be able to bring out new ideas within the wash sector, and to have more and more people join us in this journey. That's our role. And every year we bring in more partners. For some of you who may have been here yesterday when we were giving the awards, one of the biggest things that we've done this year is that 50% of the awardees, or 50% of the people who applied for our awards, were brand new, who had never really known ISC before. So I think this is really where we as a platform want to be. We want to make sure that this whole story about hygiene, about water and sanitation and livelihoods and health and everything that you see in this bottom line, it's written down there as well. All these sectors actually get prominence. And hopefully we have been able to do that in some small measure through this conclave. I do look forward to seeing all of you and a lot more of your friends and people that you know come together next year when we have a bigger and hopefully more enriched platform to be able to present to you. Thank you again, and see you again next year.